blind date turned job interview. The poor girl sat across her future boss. The cafe smelled faintly of roasted beans and cinnamon, the kind of place that felt safe for first meetings between strangers. Kelly pushed open the door, brushing off the drizzle that clung to the ends of her wavy blonde hair. She was 24, thin, with a quiet restlessness in her eyes. Her friend had insisted on the blind date. "Just an hour, Kelly. You need a break from hospitals and job hunts." Across the table sat a man with a calm, unreadable presence. Elijah, 32, wore a simple gray shirt and a watch with a worn leather strap. His eyes were sharp but carried the weight of something old and unspoken. When she sat down, he smiled politely. "I'm Elijah," he said. "I used to work in human resources. I listen better than I talk." Kelly let out a soft laugh. "That's a rare gift." They chatted casually, weather, books, neutral topics to soften the silence. But Kelly kept glancing at her phone, her fingers twitching on the table. Elijah leaned in slightly. "You seem distracted. Something on your mind?" She hesitated. "I didn't mean to be rude. I just have a big interview tomorrow. Rayner Group." Elijah raised a brow. "That's a big opportunity." Kelly nodded, voice quieter. "If I get it, I can finally pay for my mother's treatment. She's been in the hospital for months. This job is all I've got." For a moment, Elijah said nothing. Then, gently, "You should probably get some rest." Kelly offered a small smile. "Yeah, I should." He paused again, then said, "Would you like to practice? I've interviewed a lot of candidates. A mock run might help." She blinked, surprised. "You'd do that?" He nodded. "Why not?" "Think of it as a warm-up." She sat straighter as he pretended to scan a resume. "All right, Miss Kelly," he said. "Tell me about a time you made a difficult decision." They ran through several questions. Kelly answered earnestly. Elijah offered soft corrections, voice tone, stronger phrasing. His demeanor was calm, almost protective. She felt strangely safe. Then he said, "Last question. If you had to choose between kindness and personal success, what would you choose?" Kelly went quiet. Her eyes drifted to the rain outside. "Kindness," she said. "Why?" She swallowed. "Because success means nothing if you lose who you are. In college, I gave up a scholarship, so a friend, she had just lost her father, could apply. People called me naive, but I couldn't watch her fall apart. I guess I've always believed everyone deserves to be saved once in their life." Elijah froze. In his mind, he saw a small hospital room. His mother sitting beside his sickbed, telling him she would give up everything if it meant he'd be okay. She had died before seeing him become anything. He cleared his throat, but words failed. Kelly tilted her head. "Was that too much?" He shook his head slowly. "No, it was real." They sat in silence for a beat, before Kelly glanced at the clock. "I should go prepare." "Thank you, Elijah. You didn't have to help, but you did." "Good luck tomorrow," he said. "You deserve good things." She smiled, pulled on her coat, and walked out into the rain. Elijah didn't move. The chair across from him sat empty, his coffee untouched. The sound of her words, "Everyone deserves to be saved once in their life," echoed in his chest, stirring something long buried. For the first time in years, he let the memory of his mother rise. And he stayed there, in the silence, grieving and grateful at once. The morning light filtered softly through the sheer curtains of Kelly's small bedroom. She stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the white button-down shirt she had borrowed from her roommate. It was a size too big, but tucked neatly into her gray skirt, it passed. Her blonde waves were brushed into a loose, gentle frame around her face, and a touch of blush softened the shadows under her eyes. She had barely slept, but adrenaline disguised the fatigue. Today was the day. With a folder clutched tightly in her hands and a prayer silently repeated under her breath, she stepped into the lobby of Rayner Group. The building was vast, glass and steel soaring high above the city, buzzing with professionals in tailored suits. Compared to them, Kelly felt like a raindrop in an ocean. She approached the front desk, giving her name to the receptionist. "Kelly Hartley, I have an interview scheduled." The woman typed something, paused, then smiled brightly. "Ah, yes, Miss Hartley. You've already been processed." Kelly blinked. I'm sorry?" "You've been hired. The decision came in last night. You'll be starting in the community outreach department as of today." Her fingers tightened around the folder. "There must be a mistake. I haven't even interviewed yet." The receptionist shook her head kindly. "No mistake. The order came from upper management. I'm afraid I cannot share any more details. But congratulations." Kelly stood frozen for a moment. The world around her spun while she tried to absorb what she had just heard. Hired? Without an interview? This was Rayner Group, one of the most competitive firms in the city. She had spent weeks researching, preparing, anxiously waiting for a chance to prove herself. And now? She was in? A strange mix of joy and confusion swelled inside her. "Thank you," she murmured, barely finding her voice. As she walked slowly toward the elevators, her steps unsure, Kelly pulled out her phone and typed a message. "I got the job. I don't even know how. But thank you for helping me last night. It meant more than you know." The message was meant for Elijah. She stared at it for a moment, then hit send. A reply came back a minute later. "You deserve it, Kelly. I'm happy for you." Short, polite, almost distant, but it carried weight. She read the message twice, then slid the phone into her pocket. As she stepped into the elevator, her thoughts returned to the previous evening, the way Elijah had asked the interview questions with such precision, how he had gently corrected her responses, how deeply he seemed to understand the values of Rayner Group, almost as if a thought tugged at the edge of her mind. His calm demeanor, the effortless confidence, the way his eyes had dimmed at the mention of kindness over success. And that last question he asked, one that felt less like a practice scenario and more like something deeply personal. Her chest tightened with a quiet realization. Elijah had known too much about the company, the department, even the kind of leadership style they admired. It had felt like more than just coincidence. She shook her head. No, it could not be. Could it? As the elevator doors opened to the bustling office floor, Kelly took a deep breath and stepped out. Maybe it was just intuition. Maybe he had simply cared enough to help. Or maybe there was more to Elijah than he let on. But for now, all she could do was take it one step at a time. She was officially an employee of Rayner Group. That alone was a miracle. And yet, somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice whispered, he is not who he seemed. And maybe he never was. The days that followed were a blur of new responsibilities, nervous smiles, and learning the rhythm of Rayner Group. Kelly worked hard, sometimes too hard, eager to prove herself worthy of the opportunity she had been given, even if she still did not understand how she got the job. On her second morning, she stepped into the elevator and froze. Elijah stood at the far corner, scrolling through his phone. He looked different in a navy suit and tie, polished and formal. For a second, she wasn't sure it was him, until he looked up and smiled faintly. "Morning, Kelly." "Morning," she replied, her voice catching slightly. The elevator ride was brief, but charged. There was no awkwardness, just quiet awareness. From that moment on, Elijah began to appear in her daily life. In the cafeteria 2 days later, she spotted him at the end of the lunch line. He didn't approach, only nodded when their eyes met. She nodded back, her pulse skipping. Another day, she nearly bumped into him outside a meeting room. He stepped aside, holding the door with a calm, "Busy week?" "Very," she said, trying not to sound flustered. "You're doing well," he added, then walked off. The encounters were subtle, spaced just enough to feel incidental, but her instincts whispered otherwise. He was always there, just there, observing, quiet, never interfering. It gave her a strange sense of safety. One afternoon, after skipping breakfast and working through lunch, Kelly sat slumped at her desk, rubbing her temples. Her stomach growled. She had lost track of time again. A soft knock startled her. No one stood there. Instead, a small brown bag and a thermos sat neatly on her desk, warm, fresh. She opened the bag. Grilled chicken, rice, vegetables, comfort food, exactly how she liked it. A small note, folded and placed atop the lid, read, "Working hard is good, but don't forget to eat. Your mom would not approve." Kelly's breath caught. The handwriting was unfamiliar, slanted, but she knew. Her eyes swept the office, empty. She sat in silence, slowly eating, feeling warmth return to her limbs. The gesture was simple, but it cracked open something soft inside her. When she finished, she tucked the note gently into her notebook. After that, she began to notice him more. She never sought him out, but part of her waited. She caught herself listening for footsteps in the hallway, stealing glances toward doorways. And Elijah never crossed a line. He never flirted, never lingered. But when he was near, the air changed. He brought a quiet with him, a steadiness that calmed her nerves in ways she didn't expect. A week later, she was in the shared workspace, reviewing her draft for the quarterly presentation. The pressure was high. Her head pounded from overthinking every bullet point. Then she heard him. "I heard you're leading the quarterly briefing," Elijah said, voice low. "If you want a second pair of eyes." Kelly blinked, then nodded. "I'd appreciate that." He pulled up a chair beside her. They worked quietly, shoulders nearly touching. He pointed out, phrasing suggestions, formatting tweaks, always thoughtful, never condescending. She relaxed more than she meant to, even laughed once, surprising herself. At one point, their arms brushed as he reached over to adjust a slide. The contact was brief, but she felt it. Electricity, a rush that moved too fast through her body. She sat straighter, flustered. He didn't flinch, didn't comment, just kept going, calm and professional. But when she glanced sideways, his eyes were already watching her. There was no smirk, no boldness, just something unreadable, an understanding, a quiet question, one she wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. As he packed up his laptop, he said softly, "You'll do well here, and not just with the presentation." "Thank you," she whispered. He gave her a small nod and walked away. Kelly stayed seated, notebook resting in her lap, heart fluttering like a bird startled into flight. Something had started. Not a fire, not yet, but the spark was there, and she couldn't look away from it. The following weeks felt like a quiet dream, steady, bright, and fragile. Kelly found herself smiling more at work, her nerves softening each time Elijah appeared, even if only for a brief glance, a passing good morning in the hallway, or a nod across the meeting table. Whatever had brought him into her life, it felt real. He never crossed a line or made her feel small. His gestures, subtle and sincere, spoke louder than words. Sometimes, on her way home, she would replay his encouragement in her mind. "You have good instincts, Kelly. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Those words had carried her through long nights. But one morning, something shifted. The building's air felt heavier, quieter. Conversations hushed when she entered the room. People whispered in corners, eyes darting toward her. "Did you hear?" Someone murmured. "She's the one." Kelly frowned, clutching her folder tighter as she crossed the office. Then the elevator chimed. The sharp click of high heels echoed across the marble floor. When Kelly looked up, a woman in a crimson dress strode toward her, beautiful, polished, and furious. Her perfume arrived before her voice. Charlotte. Kelly recognized her immediately from articles and company events, the daughter of one of Rayner Group's major investors. Before Kelly could react, Charlotte's hand lashed across her face. The sound cracked through the room, silencing every whisper. "You think your little tricks can steal my fiancé?" she spat. "You pathetic gold-digging liar." Kelly staggered, her cheek burning. I don't understand." Charlotte cut her off with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Don't play innocent. You really think no one noticed how the CEO dotes on you? Coffee deliveries, personal meetings, the way he looks at you?" She turned to the onlookers. "She's been seducing him. Our CEO. Elijah Rayner himself." Gasps rippled through the office. Someone dropped a pen. Kelly froze. "CEO?" The words sank in, heavy and cruel. Elijah Rayner, CEO. Her mind scrambled to connect the pieces. The man from the cafe, the mentor who had quietly guided her, the one who'd encouraged her with gentle faith, was her boss, and he had never told her. The air felt thinner, her pulse deafening in her ears. Charlotte's voice cut back through, dripping poison. "I warned Elijah about women like you, but I guess he wanted to play hero. How convenient. He hires you, gives you a position you didn't earn, and you repay him with this little act." Kelly's throat closed. Every pair of eyes in the room, people she'd shared lunches with, joked with, now stared as though she were filth. "No, it's not like that," Kelly managed, voice trembling. "I didn't know." Charlotte's laugh sliced the air. "Of course you didn't. They never do." Elijah wasn't there. He was in a meeting upstairs. And even if he had been, would he have stopped it, defended her, or stood silent like everyone else? Her chest ached, vision blurring. She turned and fled. By the time she reached the restroom, her legs were shaking. She locked herself inside a stall, pressing her hands over her mouth to smother her sobs. "He's the CEO. He has a fiancé." The words looped relentlessly. The man she trusted, the one who made her believe in herself again, had hidden the truth. Had every kindness been pity, every glance part of a performance? The thought hollowed her. That night, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Calls, messages, news alerts, headlines blared. Rayner Group CEO and intern scandal. Photos of her spread online, dissected by strangers. Every caption felt like another stab. At work, no one met her eyes anymore. Whispered gossip replaced greetings. Her reputation unraveled overnight. Then came the hospital's call. Her mother had seen the news. The stress had sent her into a panic, her blood pressure spiking dangerously high. Kelly rushed there, tears streaming as guilt clawed at her chest. By morning, she couldn't face it anymore. She typed a short resignation letter, no explanations, no goodbye, and hit send. Then, she powered off her phone and disappeared. Her apartment became a cage. She sat on the floor for hours, unmoving, the hum of the city muffled by her silence. The betrayal sank in layer by layer, not just that Elijah was the CEO, but that he had let her believe she was safe with him, that he'd built trust, only to let it collapse in her hands. And worst of all, she had fallen for him. Every memory burned. His voice, his quiet presence, his smile that had once felt like sunlight. Now it all felt tainted. Every gesture she'd mistaken for affection now looked like guilt. Was he ever truly kind? Or was she just another way for him to feel better about himself, the rich man who played savior for the poor girl who didn't know her place? The questions circled until she broke. Kelly pressed her forehead against her knees, tears soaking into the fabric of her jeans. Her phone stayed dark, her world smaller than ever. And for the first time since her mother's illness began, Kelly felt completely, devastatingly, alone. The apartment felt colder with each passing day. Curtains drawn tight, the air stale and still. Kelly sat curled up on the floor beneath a blanket that no longer offered warmth. For 7 days, the world outside spun forward, while hers came to a frozen stop. She did not leave once. Food deliveries piled at the door uneaten. Her phone lay switched off, discarded like a relic of a life she no longer recognized. The silence was deafening, the noise in her head worse. She could still hear Charlotte's voice slicing the air in her mind. "You really think the CEO would fall for someone like you?" And then the dozens of eyes, co-workers who had once offered warm smiles now glared with judgment. No one asked for her side. No one cared. She had been tried, convicted, and erased. All in a matter of hours. What hurt most wasn't only the shame or the headlines or the whispers, it was the betrayal. Elijah's face no longer brought comfort. When she thought of him now, all she saw was a mask. A man who had walked into her life like a miracle, only to shatter the fragile trust she clung to. Was she just another project for him? Another broken girl to save so he could feel his own virtue? Her heart screamed no, but her mind whispered yes. The thoughts looped, relentless. He lied about who he was. He let her fall for him. He didn't stop Charlotte. He didn't protect her. Each accusation sliced deeper, until she could no longer tell what had really happened from what her pain willed her to believe. She didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. The tears had dried. Only emptiness remained. Then came the 8th morning. The phone rang. Her heart jolted. It had been off so long she barely recognized the sound. She almost let it die on the charger, but something in her chest stirred when she saw the caller ID. Street Mercy Hospital. She answered, voice trembling. "Hello?" Her mother's voice came, weak, but distinct. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Kelly choked on a sob she wasn't ready for. "Mom, I'm sorry." Her mother cut gently in. "I'm all right, just tired. But Kelly, there's something I think you should know." Kelly sat up, alert. "What is it, Mom?" A pause. Then a soft sigh. "There's a young man who has come here every day. He says he's your friend. Elijah." Kelly's breath caught. "Mom?" "He brings soup, reads to me, talks to the nurses. He brought me yellow flowers once, like the ones you drew when you were a little girl." Kelly's vision blurred. "I didn't want to tell you," her mother continued, voice tender. "But he sits here sometimes looking lost. He told me, 'Tell her I'm sorry. I'll wait.'" Kelly's hand trembled as she picked up the phone that had sat silent days. She turned it on. Notifications flooded the screen. Hundreds of missed calls. Dozens of voicemails and texts. Photos. One by one she opened them. "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry, Kelly." Others, longer, confessions, typed late at night, even deleted and redone. Pictures of hospital lobbies, her mother's room, a blanket he'd tucked around her mother. And then a message, time-stamped, last night. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but if kindness still means what you said it did, I'll keep showing up, until you believe me." Kelly stared until the words blurred. The pain was still there, sharp and fresh, but it cracked, just slightly, under something else. Not yet trust, but maybe the beginning of it. She pulled the blanket closer, hugging the phone to her chest. Elijah hadn't chased her through the headlines. He didn't show up with dramatic apologies or public declarations. He just stayed, quietly, patiently, with no expectations. And that, more than anything, pierced the fortress she had built from betrayal. A fortress she had thought impenetrable. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to open the door. The hospital hallway was quiet, lit softly by the amber hue of the setting sun. Kelly moved slowly, her footsteps barely audible against the cold floor. Each step toward her mother's room was heavier than the last, her heartbeat loud in her ears, not from fear, but something deeper. Hesitation, dread, hope. She paused outside the door. Through the glass panel, she saw him. Elijah was sitting beside her mother's bed, peeling an orange, slowly, methodically. His suit jacket was folded neatly on the chair. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. His hands, usually pristine, looked dry, raw. He looked exhausted, hunched forward, eyes hollowed with lack of sleep. The spirals of orange peel gathered in a neat pile beside him. He didn't know she was there. Kelly pushed the door open. Elijah looked up. For a suspended moment, neither moved. Their eyes met, and in that glance, there was recognition of pain, of memory, of things unsaid. "Kelly," he said, almost in disbelief. She stepped inside, quiet, composed. "You've been coming here." He nodded. "Every day." Her mother was asleep. The only sounds were the soft beeping of machines and the hum of the IV. Kelly glanced at his hands. "They're cracked." He gave a faint, sheepish smile. "Hospital soap. And I've been helping her eat. She likes oranges." Kelly crossed her arms. "Why are you doing this?" He took a breath. "Because I needed to be near someone who still believed I could be good." Her throat tightened. "I never meant to lie," he said carefully, stepping closer. "When we met, I wanted a simple night. No name tags, no expectations. Then you started talking about your mom, your dreams, and I didn't want to be the CEO in that moment. I wanted to be someone real to you." Kelly stared, trying to find deception in his face. But all she saw was weariness and truth. "What about Charlotte?" she asked. He exhaled sharply. "My father arranged it. She's the daughter of one of our investors. A political match. I refused, weeks before all this. She didn't take it well." "Then, why didn't you say something when she humiliated me?" "I wasn't there," he said, pain in his voice. "I was stuck in a meeting. By the time I found out you were gone." Kelly turned away, folding her arms tighter. "You should have told me everything." "I know," he said softly. "I kept thinking I'd find the right time, but the right time never came." He paused. "I never saw you as beneath me. Never. You were more. You are." She looked at him through blurred eyes. "You let me believe I got the job out of luck." "You didn't," he said, voice firm. "You earned it. I passed your resume to HR anonymously so they'd see your merit, not your connection to me." A tear slipped down her cheek. He stepped forward, close, but not touching her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I came to stand here and take whatever you need to give." Kelly's hand pressed over her chest. The pain was still sharp, but the way he stood there, unguarded, shifted something inside her. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she whispered. "I understand," he replied. "I'll wait." Silence wrapped around them again. It was heavy, but not hopeless. And in that quiet, something changed. Not a resolution, but maybe, just maybe, a place to start. Time passed quietly but meaningfully. In the weeks that followed their conversation in the hospital, Elijah did not chase Kelly with dramatic pleas or grand gestures. Instead, he remained present in her life, but only when she was ready. He sat in the same chairs in the cafe beside the hospital, nodded in the elevator when she appeared at work, and sent messages like, "I'll be here when you're ready." No pressure, no deadlines, just steadfast patience. Kelly noticed. At first, she resisted. Her heart still tasted of betrayal, sharp, metallic, raw. She told herself she would never trust again. She replayed the day Charlotte stormed in, the whispers, the humiliation. She remembered the slap, the shock, the pain, the rumor mill at work, the headlines she couldn't escape even at home. The anger, the confusion, the sickening question. Am I just a pawn in a game of power? But Elijah's silence was different. It wasn't absence, it was respect. He respected her pain. He respected her pace. He respected her. And gradually, Kelly began to soften. One crisp morning, she found herself walking into the park near their first coffee shop, the one where their blind date-turned-interview had taken place. The leaves were turning gold, and the air smelled faintly of earth and change. She sat on the same bench where she had left him that night, fingers wrapped around a cup of hot tea. She thought of the words she once spoke: "Everyone deserves to be saved once in their life." Elijah arrived quietly, almost unseen. He sat at a respectful distance, not speaking. She looked at him and nodded. He smiled just a little, the kind of smile that knew everything and nothing at the same time. After a moment, Kelly said, her voice soft, "I've been thinking." He nodded, silent. "Once trust is broken, it's hard to heal. But I believe that true kindness cannot stay hidden forever." Elijah watched her, his eyes gentle, maybe hopeful. "I agree," he said quietly, "and I'll prove it, for as long as you need." They didn't leap into love that day. They didn't declare forever. Instead, they stood side by side, the space between them filled with something real. Two humans, wounded and wary, choosing to try again. Kelly reached out. Her hand trembled slightly, but she placed it on top of his. He responded by turning his palm upward, letting her fingers rest gently across his skin. The warmth of his hand was steady, reassuring. They sat together in silence, watching a ladybug crawl across the bench's wood grain. It seemed trivial, but to Kelly it felt profound. A moment of stillness, connection, healing. She thought of her mother back in the hospital, her thin voice saying, "There's a man who comes for you." And she thought of her own reflection that morning, hair loose, face soft, the kind of woman who deserved more than a role in someone's game. Elijah didn't say, "I love you." He didn't have to. Instead, he squeezed her hand once and simply said, "Thank you for being here." Kelly leaned her head slightly toward his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Not because someone promised her the world, but because someone was simply there. And in that choosing, their story changed. It became less about power and mist, less about betrayal and doubt, and more about two people seeing each other and choosing each other. Their future was still unwritten. What they had built was fragile, but hopeful. And to Kelly, that was enough for now, because sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means having someone sit with you until you're ready to stand. And in Elijah's quiet presence, Kelly found the courage to stand again. The cafe hadn't changed. Same amber lights casting a golden glow across the wooden tables. Same soft jazz humming from unseen speakers. Same quiet lull between conversations. But for Kelly, everything felt different, warmer, fuller. She stepped inside slowly, her eyes sweeping over the space until they found him. Elijah stood near their old table, the one by the window, where sunlight always spilled in like a gentle spotlight. He smiled, a little nervously, and gestured for her to sit. The air between them buzzed, not with tension, but with something tender, something earned. He didn't waste time with small talk. From the leather satchel beside him, he pulled out a folder and slid it gently across the table. Kelly blinked, then opened it. Her eyes widened. It was a formal offer. Raynor Group, Community Development Division. Position, Director of Public Impact Projects. Her breath caught. It was everything she had once dreamed of. A role with purpose, responsibility, heart. The kind of job that could make a real difference. She looked up at him, voice trembling. "You remembered." Elijah smiled softly. "You told me once, on our first night, you didn't want just any job. You wanted a job that meant something. This position? You'll be leading outreach for low-income medical support, educational programs, and disaster relief. It needs someone who knows what it's like to fight for every step." Kelly stared at him, emotion rising in her throat. But Elijah wasn't done. He stood slowly. Then, without fanfare, without pulling out a ring or making a scene, he got down on one knee. Not in proposal, but in humility. He took her hand in both of his, and looked up at her with steady eyes. "If today," he said gently, you still believe in kindness, if you still believe people can change and hearts can grow, then I'm here. No lies, no hiding, just me. He paused, breath shallow. I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking you to choose me. Not for what I have, but for who I am. The man who fell in love with you the night you talked about giving away a scholarship and never stopped loving you even when you walked away. Kelly's lips quivered. Her free hand rose to cover her mouth as tears welled up, then spilled over silently. And then she laughed, soft and broken and beautiful. This time, she whispered, her fingers gently brushing through his hair, I choose both. The cafe around them faded into a blur. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of happiness, of choosing joy, of choosing him. They stayed like that, hands held, hearts open, as sunlight spilled across their table again, painting everything golden. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of the quiet power of love, or simply made you believe in second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales. Every week, we bring you heartfelt stories of resilience, healing, and the beautiful connections that change lives. Your support helps us continue spreading hope, one tale at a time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that might just be the one your heart needed today. Kindness and Love Tales, where love always finds a way.